Cyber attacks have the potential to damage a country's power grid, with their major goal being to cause widespread infrastructure failures. So, concerns about cybersecurity continue to be at the top of agendas for utilities and governments across the globe. Reports reveal that the Indian power sector is facing around 30 cyber attacks on a daily basis. We're going to discuss on cyber risk associated with electric power sector and how to address cyber security vulnerabilities. The session is powered by Omicron. And I'm glad to welcome our distinguished panelists today. Today we have with us Mr. Deepak Pandey, Director, India Region Operations, Digital Grid Business, GE T&D India, and Chairman of Smart Grid Division at IEEMA. Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
Then we have Mr. Anand Shankar, who is Senior GM, Information Security Power Grid Corporation of India Limited. Welcome, Anand, sir.
Thank you.
Then we have Mr. Narang N. Kishore, Mentor and Principal Design Architect at Narnix Technolabs Private Limited. Welcome, Narang, sir.
Thank you.
And we have Mr. Thomas Friedel, International Sales Manager Cybersecurity from Omicron. Now, in this mojo4industry development debate on managing cyber risk in electric power sector powered by Omicron, I would like to invite Mr. Deepak Pandey. He is currently Director Business Operations for GE's Digital Grid Business in India and also holds the position of Chairman Smart Grid Division at Indian Electrical and Electronics Manufacturer Association, popularly known as IEEMA. He will now explain the challenges in addressing cybersecurity vulnerabilities.
First and the foremost, I'll touch upon the technical challenges which any utility faces. The operator of the utility or the IT cell of the utility or the distribution company faces. These are primarily 5 challenges, and it has been bucketized in the format which you are able to see on the screen. The first and the foremost challenges is the design aspect of it. When any OT or IT infrastructure or any application, it can be related to SCADA, distribution management system, or transmission management system, EMS or DMS, or any other advanced applications. Whenever it is getting implemented, the holistic view of the cybersecurity in the design phase is seldom omitted. So people generally focus on the KPIs, what they have to achieve out of the particular application. But if you are driving on the road, although your car is good enough to take you to the destination, but you need to check the road as well. So you need to understand the cybersecurity considerations in the fundamental design phase. The second aspect is that the software which are being used, it can be the software which are related to the OEMs or the operating system from Microsoft or Oracle. Every application or the software has an inherent risk of vulnerabilities, and this is why all the OEMs give patches and upgrade the version of software. It is applicable in even in your mobile devices or in your laptop or desktop. And then here we are talking about the advanced infrastructure. It can be server at a distribution, IT cell, or any other advanced features which are being implemented. So the second biggest aspect is you need to check the vulnerability of the software or firmware per se. And it is not only the software and firmware which is there in the server room or into the workstation. It can be a remote end IEDs, like it can be an RTU or a bay control unit, whether it can be the firewall, versions which are there. So it has to be checked on a holistic basis whether your software or the firmwares are updated. Then the third aspect is the segregation of network. We generally term it as air gap per se, so that there is a bit of segregation from the outer world to the inner world. And at many cases, I personally have observed that although the network segregation was done, but there, because of inadequacy of understanding of the entire network, the network segregation was breached by putting a USB drive or a data card, which basically connected the inner periphery to the external world. And there have been a few attacks in terms of ransomware attack for Indian utility, which happened because of these reasons. So network segregation has to be of the utmost importance. Then, when we talk about the cybersecurity per se, or the threats which are created out of the cybersecurity, it consists of three components: people, process, and technology. So, and most of the attacks, if you see, is a combination of these three. Fifth part, which I just wanted to touch upon, is the insufficient logging and monitoring. So, the user ID, passwords, and the hierarchy of access plays also an important role, that who should be given which access, and the system is not logged in on an admin sort of passport by any unauthorized person. And then
Thank
we
you, Mr.
can
Deepak, for highlighting the challenges in addressing vulnerabilities. Now, I would like to invite Mr. Narang and Kishore to share his perspective on the strategy for making India's electricity infrastructure cyber secure, trustworthy, and resilient. Mr. Kishore is technology consultant, mentor, and design architect in electrical, electronics, and ICT with over 40 years of professional experience in education, research, design, and consulting.
I think so. Whenever we talk about cybersecurity, the question: have we seen all that is there in the cybersecurity? And those of us who have worked in cybersecurity for many years often start to think we have seen it all. Incidentally, we haven't, and it has been proved in recent years very well that the kind of new attack method, the adversaries, the new challenges that are coming up every day, and they are always going to the next level. We still are, we have touched the tip of the iceberg. And the challenges that we are facing are not very simply cyber thing. They are basically transnational nature of cybercrime, cultural vulnerabilities, internet resilience, and threat landscape. In such a dynamic scenario, how do you develop a cybersecurity strategy for a nation to make our critical infrastructure comprehensively safe, secure, resilient, and last but not the least, trustworthy? And I'll come to trustworthiness during my discourse in the next few slides. But what is our vision as a nation? Our vision as a nation is to ensure a safe, secure, trusted, resilient, and vibrant cyberspace for our nation's prosperity. As the world is increasingly interconnected, everyone shares the responsibility of securing cyberspace. So it is a collective responsibility. But how do we do that? What kind of a promise of a trustworthy cyber ecosystem that we need? What we need is internet resilience for India. This is the most important aspect, that we need to have a resilience of the internet within the country to enhance cybersecurity capabilities to better protect Indians and defend our critical government and private sector system. I need a 24x7, 99 point, I don't know how many decimals of nines, reliable internet connectivity for, functionality of all my system, my working, my personal life, my social life, my every aspect, every citizen's every aspect. So how do we do that? We need our own local domestic root servers and a network in such a way that we, even in isolated from the world, as a nation, we can continue leveraging all the digital capability that and the network infrastructure that we have built in. So that's what internet resilience that we need to target for. The basic problem of these two, IT and OT, is these two titans clash because at the lowest level, the security considerations for their entire design structures are based on, they're entirely different. They come from different ecosystem, their thought process. And as we all know, power systems are among the most complex and critical infrastructure of a modern digital society, serving as the backbone of economic activities and security. It is therefore in the interest of every country to secure the operation against cyber risk and threats. Then IoT. IoT is covering everywhere. Everything is getting IoTized, whether it is smart grids or smart home or smart building or your smart EVs, everywhere we are getting IoTization. So IoT, we need to keep in mind, how does that impact our overall ecosystem? AI is being leveraged in every aspect, whether it is IT, whether OT, IoT, or NT, or we are leveraging, and so these are the 5 constituents. We need to understand them holistically together, and there are a lot of intertwining, interdependency between them. How do we manage these things together as a homogeneous framework to get the deliverables or the imperative that we want out of the digitalization programs of any particular nation, infrastructure, organization? So we need to have a holistic approach to develop the trustworthy reference architecture and then map already developed standards on various aspects of developed reference architecture, identify the gaps in standards, and developing new system standards, product or domain specific standards, and then developing comprehensive compliance testing framework and ecosystem, test lab, supporting and enabling services. I think this is the exercise that we are trying to do under IEEMA along with Deepak and all other our members. Considering the current and future evolving cyber threat landscape, what we need to have 2 national documents, a concise yet comprehensive national cybersecurity strategy that sets clear top-down directions to enhance the cyber resilience for the ecosystem that includes government, public and private sectors, the citizenry, and also addresses international cyber issues. Then we need a separate national cybersecurity policy. If you remember, our last cybersecurity policy was in 2013. We still do not have the next version. I think it is still in works. I've been waiting for 1.5 years. It has not yet come out. Anyway, we as a nation, we as an ecosystem have already had enough share of poor judgments. We should be wise enough and should be able to take some good judgments now onwards. As our Nobel laureate Rabindranath Tagore said long time back, let us not pray to be sheltered from dangers, but to be fearless when facing them. And I found this phrase as an apt definition for resilience in our cyber security context or in our power infrastructure context, that dangers are going to be there today, tomorrow, day after. But let us be fearless while facing them with a strategic, holistic, and granular approach. Thank you.
Nicely put, sir. Thank you so much, Mr. Naran, for sharing your valuable thoughts on why India needs internet resilience. Thank you so much, sir. And now I would like to invite Mr. Thomas Fiddle. He is International Sales Manager, Cybersecurity at Omicron. He's going to discuss on the technologies to manage cyber risk in electric power sector. Welcome, Thomas.
Omicron is in that space, in the electric power industry, in the substation business since more than 35 years. We're doing research work for cybersecurity since 10 years. So we have a lot of experience in that, and I would like to share one aspect of these possible solutions with you. And we also strongly believe it's not just the cybersecurity aspect we have to consider, but also let's say the functional aspect. So not just looking at attacks, but also because the devices are getting more intelligence, more complex, also look if they are properly working. So we need to combine that in one solution. So that's probably one of our main approaches here. But having maybe a quick look, so what kind of attack vectors, so basically ways and methods getting into, for example, in a substation, which is basically the heart or one of the main parts of our distribution networks. How can you get into that space? So you have, of course, the the connection to the corporate IT. We heard a lot of discussions about OT and IT, but we still have connections to the IT for a couple of business reasons. We have then our control centers, which are connected to the substation, for example. And then we have our subcontractors working on maintenance work and so on. They're bringing their engineering PCs with them, and a potential attacker may decide, I believe the utility itself is well protected, so I will looking to companies he's working with, and then he may attack the engineering company and a particular engineering PC to get into your network. So this is what we call supply chain attacks, basically. And then also we have to consider solutions, test and measurement products. Omicron, for example, is using, and our customers are using to maintain your substation networks. So also these devices are potential ways to get into your network, and also the databases may typically stored somewhere else, and you can go via the database attack to back to your substation network, for example. So these are a couple of attack vectors we see. Also, you have a lot of older devices. I was talking about that in the morning today. You have old systems not updated and so on. You need to look also in the old station PCs itself as well. How to deal with that? Because we have a different situation here in the OT world compared to the office IT world. In the office IT world, you may take a message aside, do some investigation with a wire scanner, and then putting it back to the journey to your desktop destination 5 minutes later. This is not possible in our environment in the energy sector, because by no means we can do anything which may interrupt the switchgear command and so on. And there was a thinking, what can we do to look still in this? And there was an idea, or a good approach was for countermeasure this type of attacks, an intrusion detection system. Why is that possible? Because, as it was mentioned, there was a part of state-sponsored attacks. So I would even extend that to crime organization who's doing also a lot of work here. And they are not doing this work overnight. So they are doing investigations. They are in your network for a couple of weeks, months even. And that gives us a time to look at the network traffic, and then to detect harmful activities and respond. And that's why intrusion detection systems are a good choice to look into for protecting your networks. But looking at the current available IDS solutions, so we have these traditional signature-based, or let's say kind of heuristic-based approach, which is well known in the office IT world, and they are prone to have a lot of false positives, which then leads to an annoying situation that you're getting a lot of alarms, so you can not deal with that. We have not many signatures available for our components in our industry, and these kind of solutions can't discover the so-called ATP, unknown attacks, so the advanced persistent, because they have no knowledge about them. And then there was an idea to overcome these limits with so-called baseline methods, anomaly detection, learning-based systems. But again, this is a problem because you need really a lot of time to learn, and you have to repeat that for any substation again and again. You cannot inherit what you learned in one substation to another substation solution. So it's what time consuming, many false alarms, and because these devices are not intelligent enough to understand maintenance processes in a substation and so on, and they don't really support the work together of OT and IT people, because there are kind of sometimes not very well explained messages inside. So these two available approaches seems not to work very well for our environment, or the OT environment, the energy sector. And we came up with trying to leverage our 35 years of experience in that space, and we came up with a different, or let's say alternative approach. So product is called Station Guard, but there's a technology behind is leveraging our deep knowledge about substations, processes, and so on. And we know how a substation should work in a normal way. So we are, for example, we can incorporate, let's say, description files of these substations into our system, and then we know what the normal communication is about, and then we evaluate any packet against this model. We are running through a decision tree, if you would like, and then we basically have a kind of allow list saying this, we know the allowed traffic, and we are alert any not allowed traffic. So that's in a very short the method we are using. We know there are many ways to attack a substation, and we know also that the typical approach to segregate things, so to just implement next generation firewalls or whatever, is not enough. And we strongly believe introducing a security solution into the energy sector, that these solutions need to speak the language of the protection engineers and the control engineers, and they need to work together with the IT to analyze things. And we strongly believe this needs to be reflected in a product, and that's why we try to design a product which is really tailor-made for intrusion detection in substations and in the energy in the utility world. So that's why we designed that product in a specific way, because we learned it from our long-standing experience in that sector.
Thank you so much, Thomas, for presenting technologies to manage cyber risk in electric power sector. I would request all our panelists to briefly talk about what needs to be done to make Indian power sector resilient.
We need to have the smart grid reference architecture. So when we are talking about the architecture point of view, there has to be some reference which all the utilities should follow, especially the distribution utilities. And this reference architecture, along with the cybersecurity framework, should protect the technology piece of it. Then comes the training of operators, the qualification of CISOs in the utility. If these combination of these are done at as a first step, I think much can be achieved.
Thomas, would you like to add something then?
Well, no, as I mentioned, I think that there are a couple of challenges ahead of us, and as Anand already mentioned, that there is a gap in the, let's say, in the distribution network in the substation fields, and we need to give up the belief that we have one solution fits all. So I don't think that is possible. We need specific solutions for the specific needs for the energy sector. That's very mandatory, to not try to have a product which is coming and can solve everything. I don't believe in that. Yeah.
Narayan sir, your comments.
You will need a holistic, comprehensive strategy, including all the stakeholders with their proper responsibility. And last but not the least, which has been highlighted by all the speakers, skill building, capacity building. We do with cybersecurity is a new subject world over. We need to have a lot of people skilled on that, on the technology aspect, but then the temperament for each and every operator in the value chain, in the whole organization. People need to be conscious. Even as a citizen, we need to be conscious about how do we protect our laptop or mobile from hacking or from corrupting. So that kind of temperament as society, if it comes, I think next few years, we should be relatively safer. That's what I can keep my fingers crossed and hope. Thank you.
So, Mr. Narayan, considering the growing digitalization happening in the substation space, what action do you suggest to secure a substation?
Since it is a digitalized, everything is going towards digitalized. The interlocks, if you see, like when it comes to your substation, mainly like in your substation, even the interlocks, like we used to deal with goose messages. It is through fiber optic. And again, digitalized, if you're speaking the analog values, current and voltage, that is coming towards sample values. So these things, like if you ask me, like in my opinion, there are two things which we have to take care. One is like the goose and sample values, like the particular these things to be like protected. At the moment, I feel it is not protected properly. And by chance, if you have a proper, protection toward this particular aspect would be good one. And second, there is a standard says like IEC 62351. That standard, it is clearly mentioned, you can also assign a role-based kind of control. Maybe let's take an example. You have a substation, or maybe you have a generation kind of company where you can also like put it across this way, like a operator can have this much access, a maintenance person can have this much access. So that can also like, save your substation or save your, facility to from the hackers. So these two aspects I feel which is really like important going towards digitalized process.
That is well summarized, sir. I think so. Before concluding today's session, would like to thank our distinguished panelists, Mr. Deepak Pandey, sir. Thank you so much. Mr. Anand Sankar. Thank you so much, Anand, sir. Mr. Narayan and Kishore. Thank you so much, Kishore, sir.
Always happy to be part of such discussions.
Thank you so much for sharing your valuable input, sir. And Mr. Thomas Friedel, and then Mr. Narayan and Mr. Nathan for joining us late. Thank you so much, Mr. Narayan, again. So we thank sponsor for the session, Omicron. So this concludes the webinar.
Please don't forget to subscribe our YouTube channel and press the bell icon.